In today's video, we continue on with our NHL offseason plan series. Today, we're looking at the 7th-ranked team in the regular season, the Tampa Bay Lightning. Another strong regular season, but ultimately not a great playoff success, something they've failed to do since winning their last Stanley Cup, losing once again to their state rivals. Today, we're going to analyze the Lightning season, take a look at what we should expect from them in the offseason in terms of contracts, free agents, trades, and the draft, and how will they continue to shape this team for the future coming up next. Welcome back to another video here at Top Shelf Hockey. As I mentioned, today we're looking at the Tampa Bay Lightning. We're going to analyze last season, take a look at how things went both as a team and a bunch of individuals and their leaders, take a look at their internal business, as well as the draft, free agency, trades. What should we expect from them this offseason, and how do the Lightning keep moving this team forward and trying to become, a Stanley Cup winner once again. This is a team that's been in contention for a lot of years. Obviously have a couple cups with this core group of players under their belt and would like to try to continue doing that. Obviously, they're a team that strives for excellence, and it's really been a long time since we've seen them take a real serious step back. Are they the contenders they were when they were winning back-to-back cups? Maybe not, but they're still a really, really good team. And, ultimately trying to figure out, is there a piece or two or a move or two they can make to take them up a level to overcome the Panthers, for example, and get back to being a cup champion. So let's take a look at last year and how things went in 24-25, and both as a team and individuals, and we'll look at what we should expect from them in the offseason. So they finished with a record of 47, 27, and 802 points, which is only a slight bump up from the year before. Last year they had 98 points with a record of 45, 29, and 8. So, minor improvement, we'll say, when a lot of people thought, myself included, this might be a year that we actually see them maybe take a smaller step back. I didn't think they'd completely fall out of contention. I didn't think they would miss the playoffs or anything, but I thought they might, be more of a wild card team and maybe have, maybe like a 94-point team or something along those lines. Obviously being a 98-point team last year, I didn't expect better. I expected maybe just a small step back. Didn't do it. They proved me wrong for sure, especially after losing Steven Stamkos and the tough decisions they made last offseason. I really thought this team might be different, but again, they had a real strong year. They scored 292 goals, number one in the league, so that's something they continue to be the best at. Pretty much the same as last year. They scored 291, 292 this year, except last year the top team with the most goals was over 300. So overall, those numbers as a league for the top have come down slightly. Goals against was 216, which is still really good, fourth best. Last year they allowed 268, so that is substantially better. That's a 52-goal drop in goals against, which is absolutely phenomenal amongst a veteran team like this, largely the same crew. The power play was really strong, 25.9, number 5 in the league. The penalty kill, 81.6, number 6 in the league. Like, really, I'm surprised they went out so quietly in the playoffs. This team on paper had a phenomenal season. And it's just mind-boggling how they got manhandled so easily in the playoffs by their state rivals. I mean, I know the Panthers are really good. I'm not shocked that Florida won, but I was surprised in how they won and how Tampa just didn't have a lot of that fight back. Goaltending-wise, a good season for Vasilevsky. 38, 20, and 5 record, 2.18 goals against and a 921. That's very much Vasilevsky-like, although playoff Vasilevsky was not at the same level, which I think played a big role, obviously. So we'll get into that a little later as well. Johansson had a record of 9-6-3, a 313 goals against, and an 895 save percentage. They're leaders amongst individuals scoring. Kucherov, of course, who won the Art Ross Trophy, 121 points. Brandon Hagel had a real nice year at 90 points. Braden Point at 82, and Jake Gensel at 80. The other thing that's even more impressive about Brandon Hagel's 90-point campaign this year, he scored 35 goals, and not one of them were on the power play. He had 3 that were shorthanded, but no power play goals. I mean, that's a phenomenal year from Brandon Hagel, of course, who ended up on Team Canada at the Four Nations, had a nice tournament, and really upped his game with the Lightning this year. Was certainly one of the bigger reasons. I think like the biggest changes he saw in Tampa was really his role and his production, which was already good just get even better and really made a difference for them. Of course, later in the year at the deadline, they also made a big trade with the Kraken, bringing back Yanni Gourde along with forward Oliver Bjorkstrand. They've already re-signed Gourde to an extension as well, so he's sticking around, and Bjorkstrand's under contract as well for another season, so they're not a one-and-done scenario at the deadline. Those players will be with them for a little while here just yet. The Lightning only have $3.4 million in cap space, but they do have 20 roster spots theoretically filled. I mean, obviously there is a little bit of that could be sent to the minors, put on waivers, whatever, if they found upgrades, but obviously they don't have a lot of things that they have to do. A lot of their team's already under contract. But looking at the few that they do have on the RFA side, Gage Calvas obviously is a player that's kind of have a growing role here, if you will. I have no doubt they'll get him re-signed. I'm not sure what that contract's going to look like exactly, but he's definitely going to be getting a raise, and he's definitely going to be getting maintaining a pretty important role for the team. On the UFA side, we might not see any of these players back. Cam Atkinson, Luke Glendening, and Nick Perbix. I mean, there's a possibility. Maybe I'd say maybe Perbix, but they don't have to. They're not really in a situation where any of those players are playing a massive role in it. They're all just kind of depth players. I mean, Atkinson, I think, is gone for sure. The other two, I would think, are most likely not back, but we'll have to wait and see. As far as players that are eligible for contract extensions, they do have a couple of D-men, including Ryan McDonough and Darren Radish. So we'll see if they want to extend those players or maybe let it ride a little bit here and see where things go first. Oliver Bjorkstrand, who came over from Seattle, also eligible too. I would think that maybe they give it a longer stretch to see how things go for him before they get into that. There's no huge rush to do it right on July 1st, but obviously, we're giving up assets for a player. They clearly like this guy and probably would like to see him stick around. So we'll see how things work out. The top questions facing the team, obviously, is, can they get back to being a stronger contender? Strong regular season's one thing, but like I said, they bowed out early and quiet in the playoffs, so they're state rivals. And, are they missing some pieces to be able to handle those teams? The Atlantic Division is one of the toughest divisions in hockey. And, obviously between the Lightning and the Panthers, we've had, a lot of years now in a row where a Florida-based team is making it to the Stanley Cup final and winning championships. So clearly, losing out to the Panthers early doesn't mean you're a weak team. But it does mean that, they're a team that you probably need to plan for, if you will, with your moves and make sure that you're better equipped to try to handle them in the playoffs if that happens yet again. And it's obviously a strong possibility. But one thing that happened for me is that, Vasilevsky in the playoffs was not playoff Vasilevsky. Regular season Vasilevsky was way better. In the playoffs, he had an .872 save percentage, whereas the regular season was a .921. Big difference. Goals against went from .218 to .327. So, they need Vasilevsky to be better in the playoffs. Obviously, team defensively was, they were dominated to some extent. So, do they still have a dominant playoff goalie is the big question facing the team. And it's hard to know the answer to that. I would like to think that they probably feel like they do, but I just find that Vasilevsky the last 2, 3, 4, ever since they won their last cup, just not as dominant. And when they were winning cups, I just felt like he was invincible. But the last few years, I don't feel like that's the case anymore. Still good, still really good at times, but it just seems like teams aren't afraid of him in the playoffs like they once were. So, would the real Vasilevsky please stand up? That's what I would like to see, and they need to figure that out. The only thing is during the offseason, as far as what do they do? It's not like they're going to trade him. It's not like they're going to bring in another backup. They don't have the room. They keep going with a guy like Johansson, who they've extended, who's not the greatest goalie. But, I understand from a cap perspective, they can't afford a whole lot more. But, I think a lot of the things on Vasilevsky is, for a while now, really, it's been a long time. You got to wonder if he plays too much. And does he run out of gas in the playoffs? That might be the answer. So, upgrading the backup spot is a clear solution to helping with that. But they don't have the money to do it. And they've had opportunities before. And they've committed money elsewhere. So, I don't know that's really going to be something that they end up doing. So, are they going to try to add more grit to try to compete with the Panthers, because like obviously, your Marchands and your Bennetts and your Kachucks, and obviously they love the forecheck. They like to be right on the line. Sometimes they cross it with their level of intensity and dirtiness. Do they have an answer for that? Are they going to try to bring in some players that might be better equipped to respond to that type of play? Hard to do when you're so tight to the cap, right? But it could be via trade. That's another question that I'd like to see if Brisebois is going to address. Obviously, they've been linked to JJ Peterka, who wants out of the Buffalo Sabres, which is something that Frank Saravalli's reported recently. But again, like he says he knows that they're interested, and he's not sure who they would offer in a trade, so he doesn't really know how they would figure out the money side of it. That's the hard part. So again, that's a tough thing to figure out, is how do you end up doing the money to make an addition like that. That's a real interesting thing, and I don't know that they're going to be able to do it, but we'll see. Could be a player to watch. At the draft, they don't have a first rounder or a third rounder. They do have picks in rounds 2, 4, 5, and 7. They have multiple 7th rounders, so they will have some currency there to do some stuff with, or make obviously acquisitions for drafting players. But again, the Lightning are still trying to win now, and I'm not sure they're going to be a real fun team to watch at the draft. Obviously, a player like Connor Sherry still making $2 million. That might be a contract that they look to move on. It's only 1 year left, so. Obviously he was buried a lot in the minors this year, which would give them a little bit of room, but they'd probably prefer to get the whole $2 million off if they can. If they can knock that off and knock it up to closer to $5.5 million, well, that's a good start. And then you have to look at, can we make another move to free up a little bit more? And now they could free up a couple million more than that. Then you're looking at an option where you might be able to go after a guy like Peterka, but it depends on what you're giving up in a trade. That's the big question. I mean, you look at a lot of their top players, they're like Kucherov and Point and Cirelli and Hagel. Like, they're not going to want to trade any of those guys. So who are you going to offer for Peterka? The Sabres, to me, are not going to accept a trade unless you're giving him at least one roster player that's going to be really good and help them right away. I mean, you could offer Connor Geekie, who's still a decent-looking prospect, but he's not far enough along to say he's going to be a big impact right away. So I don't know how they do that, and I'm not sure what they could do with Buffalo to make it work. But again, so I don't expect a lot from Tampa. Their roster is largely set. Could they maybe make a couple of depth signings in free agency? Yeah, maybe. Couple of players that you might see a contract extension for. Otherwise, it would have to be through the trade market. And like I said, I wonder about a guy like Peterka, and I wonder about adding some more grit. But it's going to be challenging to do. So those are what I would look to do. I just don't know how they creatively figure out how to do it. So let me know what you think. Are the Lightning going to be largely the same team next year because of the tight cap situation? Or what moves would you make to add some grit? And maybe, if you can add another player like Peterka, how do you go about doing it? Let me know what you think in the comments, and we'll talk further. If you're new to the channel, make sure you subscribe and stick around. We'll keep you up to date with all the news, rumors, and analysis of all 32 NHL teams. Thanks for watching. I'll catch you next time.